Entitled daughter slams her single father as a broke loser online after he refuses to fund her $150,000 wedding. His response? Cancels all support. My daughter Trisha, who's 23, has a fiancé named Jerry, and they're planning a wedding in just a couple of months. I'm 44, and I had Trisha when I was in my early 20s, not long after I got married. Unfortunately, my wife passed away 6 months into our marriage, due to an epileptic seizure. From that point on, I did everything I could to give Trisha the best life I could. I threw myself into my work, like most people do after a tragedy, and my sister helped by watching Trisha at home until I got off work. I worked hard, climbed the ranks, and poured everything into raising my daughter. I gave her pretty much anything she asked for. Needless to say, I spoiled her, and I take full responsibility for that. I thought I was doing what was best for her. My sister warned me a few times that I was giving her too much, but I never listened. Trisha was my weak spot, and I couldn't bring myself to say no. Then, a week ago, she asked me to pay for her wedding, and that's when things started to spiral. She wanted this extravagant, over-the-top wedding with a price tag of $150,000. There would be tons of guests, some of whom she barely knew, and she insisted on inviting them all. The food had to be top tier, and the venue was outrageously expensive. Not only that, but she also wanted a custom-made designer wedding gown and all the jewelry, plus the cost for her bridesmaids. Now, I'm not broke, but $150,000 for a wedding was just too much. I've got a business, but spending that kind of money would devastate my finances. So, I had to break it to Trisha that I just couldn't afford to pay for that kind of wedding. I told her she would need to cut some costs or at least pitch in herself. She seemed upset and asked me if I didn't have a wedding fund set aside. I did, but it was only $75,000, not nearly enough for what she wanted. I figured she'd ask me for just the venue or the catering, but she expected me to pay for everything. On top of that, I never expected her to want to get married this soon. She and Jerry had only been together for a year, so I figured they could wait and I'd have time to save up more. Maybe they could even get better jobs and pitch in for the wedding costs. When I explained all of this, she didn't get it and threw a fit. She stormed out, angry at me for not paying for the wedding. She knew I could afford it, but I didn't want to blow that much money on a wedding. She accused me of being selfish and said that if this were a business deal, I'd never hesitate to spend. I couldn't explain to her that a wedding and a business deal were two different things, so I let it slide. I felt bad, and after a while, I decided I would take out a personal loan to help her out. I spoke to a banker friend, and figured I could pay it off over time, so it didn't seem like a big deal. For the next 2 days, Trisha didn't speak to me, and I didn't reach out until I had the loan set up. But then, on the third day, she posted a vicious Facebook post calling me a broke loser. She said I was selfish, always focused on work and never there for her as a kid. She even went as far as to suggest that my wife's death was somehow my fault, which was just cruel. Then, she called me a selfish workaholic, and still, I was a broke loser. That hit me hard, and I blocked her immediately. I didn't touch my phone or check my social media for a few hours. I was in a fog, and my sister came over to check on me. When she saw me upset, I broke down in front of her. What Trisha said really cut deep, and I was in a bad place for the next few days. I barely talked to anyone, not even at work. My sister stayed with me and took care of me, and she talked to Trisha, convincing her to take the post down. But by then, it didn't matter much. I knew exactly how Trisha felt about me, and it crushed me. I didn't know what to say to her, so I didn't say anything at all. I only unblocked her yesterday, when I started feeling a little better. My sister had already given her an earful, but I needed to talk to her myself. I had already canceled the loan, and though I hated doing it, I knew I wanted to hurt her emotionally, just as she had hurt me. I shouldn't have felt that way about my daughter, but I was so angry that I wanted her to feel the weight of what she had done. So, I unblocked her, waited for her to call, and she finally did, last evening. She started by apologizing, saying she had been really angry and said things she didn't mean because she was upset about the wedding. Even while she was apologizing, she didn't seem sincere. She just sounded frustrated, and I couldn't stand it. I cut off her apology and told her about the loan and the surprise I'd been keeping from her. For a second, she seemed happy, thinking I was still going to pay for everything, but then I told her I had cancelled the loan after her post, and that I wouldn't be covering any of the wedding costs. I told her she would have to find a way to pay for it herself, since she was so independent and I was so selfish. She was about to speak, but I kept going. I told her that since I was so selfish, I wanted her to pay me back for everything I had spent on her after she turned 18. It wasn't fair for me to ask for the money back, but I wanted her to feel guilty. So, I told her to repay every single penny, including the cost of her college tuition, accommodation, shopping, trips with her friends, and all the little extras. She was spoiled, and I was the one who enabled it. I told her that once she repaid me, we could cut ties and never speak again. She wouldn't have to stay in touch with a broke loser like her dad, and I wouldn't have to deal with a spoiled, ill-mannered brat. It would be better for both of us. By the time I got to that point, I was practically screaming into the phone because I was so angry, and all the emotions I had been holding back just exploded. I couldn't control it anymore. When I finished yelling, I hung up and just lay on the couch, trying to calm down. My sister heard me from the kitchen and came over. She didn't say anything at first, but I could tell she had thoughts on the situation. She waited until dinner and brought it up. She told me that I was just as responsible for how Trisha turned out because I was the one who spoiled her. She said I couldn't blame her entirely for her behavior, I had raised her this way. She felt it was unfair of me to be so hard on her, even though she knew Trisha's apology wasn't genuine. She believed I should have simply cut her off until she apologized sincerely, and not just because of the family backlash. She knew Trisha felt bad for what she said, but she also knew that my reaction was just as ridiculous. I shouldn't have let my anger take over because, at the end of the day, I raised her, and I created this person. My sister reminded me of how Trisha had treated others badly, including our family and friends, and how I had never really done much to correct it. I just believed she'd grow out of it. But now, Trisha was finally targeting me, and I was on the receiving end of her cruelty. I could see the person I had created, and there was no one else to blame. My sister told me I could have made things right by letting Trisha come to her senses on her own, but instead, I acted like a child. I did the same thing Trisha would have done in my place. I was vindictive and unnecessarily cruel. I was now in the same position as her. I didn't agree with her at the time, and I left dinner angry without finishing my food. We haven't spoken since last night, but after thinking it over, I can see where she was coming from. I realize I've been acting like Trisha, and that's not the example I want to set for my daughter. But at the same time, I don't think this is entirely my fault. Trisha is an adult, and she's free to make her own choices. I didn't teach her to act this way, but I also didn't teach her not to. I'm just confused about whether I'm the one at fault. Update 1. Hey everyone, I realized where I went wrong, and I've apologized to my sister. She's been the only one who's had my back through all of this, and I can't afford to lose her support. I didn't want to admit it, but she's right. If I'm honest with myself, I've been avoiding facing my failures as a father. I always let Trisha get away with acting out, because I didn't want to discipline her. I was too soft on her, and now it's come back to bite me. She's not a good person now, and I feel like it's my fault. I haven't talked to her since that phone call, and she hasn't reached out either. At this point, I don't plan on speaking to her again unless she genuinely apologizes. I just don't see us making up anytime soon. Update 2. My sister believes I should have handled this differently from the start. She thinks I should have cut Trisha off when she posted that hurtful thing, and honestly, I agree. That phone call didn't help anything. It made me realize I failed as a father. I always wanted to raise a daughter who didn't feel the absence of her mother, and I guess that's why I went overboard with spoiling her. I was trying to make up for it, but in doing so, I let my responsibilities as a parent slip. I never disciplined her, never scolded her when she misbehaved, and that was just as bad as giving her everything she wanted. I've been selfish, and now both Trisha and I are paying the price. I feel guilty, but it's too late now. I don't want any money from her, and I don't think she'll send it back anyway. I don't regret what I said to her, though. I needed to get that off my chest, but I know I could have been more gentle. I don't owe her an apology, so I'm not speaking to her until she comes to me with a real apology. Update 3. I just got $22,000 from Trisha. It's been a few days since my last update, and we haven't spoken. I don't know what this is about. I told my sister, and she thinks it's because of what I said about her repaying me for everything I've done for her since she turned 18. I guess that makes sense, but it feels wrong that she sent me the money without saying anything. I didn't want it, so I sent it right back. I don't need her money. What I wanted was an apology, but I know that's not going to happen. She hasn't even acknowledged it. After I made that update, Trisha called me. She said she was just doing what I asked, but she also wanted me to stop making things harder than they already were and just accept the money. I told her I didn't want it, and I just wanted her to feel the same way I did when I heard what she said to me on the phone. She could keep her money. But then she told me that after the way I insulted her, she didn't feel comfortable owing me anything. I used that logic against her, telling her that after calling me a selfish, broke loser, I didn't feel comfortable accepting money from her either, since it would just confirm what she already thought of me. We hit a standstill. After a few seconds of silence, she sighed and said she didn't know what I wanted her to say. She was exhausted from dealing with my weird behavior, and I just repeated her words back to her because it was exactly how I felt. Then she told me she was ready to talk if I wanted a real conversation, but if I kept acting like this, there was no chance of us resolving things. I told her I didn't want a discussion. I just wanted an apology. If she was ready to apologize, we could talk. If not, I had nothing to say. After that, I hung up, and that was the end of the conversation. She hasn't said anything since, and I haven't heard from her. Update 4. It's been a few days since I last posted, and I still haven't heard from Trisha. But Jerry posted about their breakup on social media. I didn't find out on my own, but my sister told me because she stays in touch with the rest of the family, and they saw the post. Trisha was tagged in it. They said it was mutual, but I don't believe it. If it had been mutual, Trisha wouldn't have deactivated all her accounts so quickly after that post. Something's off, but I can't ask her about it, so I just have to figure it out myself. My sister thinks their breakup has something to do with our fight. She believes they probably argued about it, but I don't know if that's true. Maybe I'm wrong, though. I've been wrong about a lot of things lately. I do want to know what happened between them, and I want to comfort Trisha, because I know she's probably feeling terrible. But I can't do anything about it, so I'll just ignore it for now. Update 5. I found out today what really happened between Trisha and Jerry, and it's bad. Thankfully, it has nothing to do with me, so my sister was wrong about that. I'm relieved because I really didn't want to be involved in that mess. I didn't have to ask Trisha, she told me what went down. We're still not on good terms, though. I'm not sure where we stand right now, but I'm not going to talk about it for a while. I mentioned earlier that Trisha and Jerry had only been together for a year. They met through friends, and Jerry was seeing someone else when he met Trisha. He broke up with her soon after, and a month later, he started dating Trisha. A few months into the relationship, Trisha found out he'd been seeing both of them at the same time. They fought about it, but Trisha didn't leave. She made him promise he wouldn't contact his ex anymore. Then Jerry proposed to show her how serious he was, and Trisha rushed the wedding to get over his ex. But recently, she found out he'd been using a secret phone to stay in touch with her. That's when Trisha decided to end it. This happened just a few days ago, but Jerry begged her not to tell anyone about his cheating because his family would cut him off. He was desperate, and she promised not to make it public. That's why they put out the statement saying they broke up mutually. Trisha told me she'd suspected something was off with him for a while, which is why she'd been on edge ever since they got engaged. When I told her I couldn't afford the wedding, she got upset and said a lot of hurtful things to me. But she apologized later, saying she didn't mean any of it. She was just frustrated about everything. She told me she was truly sorry for everything and didn't expect me to forgive her right away, but she hoped we could work things out in the future. She said she'd try to be a better daughter and a better person. I haven't replied to her yet because I don't know what to say. I do feel bad for her, and I feel bad for myself too. Trisha's the most important person in my life, and I feel like I've messed things up so badly. I do plan to reach out to her, but I want to figure out what to say first. I just want her to know that no matter what happens, I'll always have her back, and nothing will change that. Update 6. Hey, so it's been a while since I last posted here. Trisha and I have managed to reconcile, and things are going well so far. She apologized for everything, and I forgave her. She was already feeling miserable, and it would have been wrong to add to that. She told me that everything with Jerry really got to her, and she started acting out because of it. But she also admitted that she knew she wasn't the easiest person to deal with, and I was partly to blame because I never disciplined her. I always avoided scolding her or punishing her when she did something wrong. Now, we're working on improving our relationship. We both know we need to be there for each other, especially during tough times like these. I don't want to give up on her, and neither does she. We're committed to fixing things and sticking it out. As for Jerry, I encouraged her to tell the truth about what happened. He promised to stay loyal to her, but he didn't, so she didn't owe him any kindness. I told her she needed to post the truth, and I'm glad she did. Their breakup turned into a huge online fight, but it showed Jerry's true colors. Trisha was in the right, and most people supported her, except a few girls who were just looking for an excuse to talk badly about her. Trisha told me she was glad I insisted she tell everyone the truth, because Jerry needed to be exposed. For now, we're working on rebuilding our relationship. It's not perfect yet, but we're still in the early stages. Hopefully, we'll have a healthy father-daughter bond soon. She's going to therapy, and we're both trying to become better people. God knows we both need this. We don't know what the future holds, but we're going to try our best to make it through.